out more about what you're talking about.
Yes.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome. As you are jumping on, please let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. And I'm going to check my tech real quick. It looks like we are live on Facebook and on LinkedIn and YouTube. Let me tell you, if you are joining us from Facebook, real important that you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give Facebook and StreamYard permission to talk to each other, because if you leave us a comment, we will not know your name unless you do that. So, and if you've already done that, you don't need to do it again. But go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give those two permission to speak to each other. So, again, if you, as you're joining, make sure you leave me a comment where you're joining from in the comments. And if you're catching this on replay, please use hashtag replay. So when I go back and check the comments, I will know where, or know that you actually have caught that on the replay. So, I want to, tell you, if you are new to me and I am new to you, let me introduce myself. My name is Beverly Smith, and I'm the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm. So, y'all, I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for, and I use that knowledge now to help mid and senior level professionals build their resumes so that they can land the career of their dreams. So, last week, if you joined us, you may remember Bethany Wallace was on live with us, and we talked all about soft skills and how you can demonstrate them in a job interview. It was such a good session. So if you missed that, go back to my YouTube channel, which is at Beverly Smith Resumes, and go and watch that. It will be underneath the live tab. But today I have another special guest. I have Amy Langston joining me, and she is my friend. We go way back. We actually were friendly competitors in the staffing industry at one time and have both moved on. But today she's going to share her perspective on how you can actually land that interview. Let me tell you a little bit about Amy. She is currently the Director of Talent Management at Adafio Technology Partners, which is the largest and fastest growing technology service firm in the Mid-South region. She has an extraordinary track record in recruiting, motivating, and training, and she's uniquely capable and insightful about what it takes to actually secure both an interview as well as an offer. Amy has successfully managed both high volume and high level recruitment projects for some of the largest companies here in Arkansas. In her 20 years of progressive senior leadership positions, she has created award-winning cultures, built talent management infrastructure, and coached leaders and teams to higher level of performance and revenue growth. Amy earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and computer science or computer information system from the University of Arkansas. She's also a certified staffing professional, a certified personnel consultant, and a certified practitioner of the 5 Behaviors Leadership Program. Amy is also active and well-connected in her community, and she's previously held positions on the boards of the Academies of Central Arkansas, the Arkansas Compensation Association, and Central Arkansas Human Resource Association. So, Amy, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and it's crazy to hear it spoken that I have been in this industry now for almost 20 years. It's just, time flies.
It is. I mean, and it's just amazing. You always know those people who it gets in their blood, and they're just good at it, because like you and me, we just kind of stuck through it, where it's just, I have noticed that in staffing where people do not move out if they love it. So
That's right.
And it's cool that you're kind of doing something similar, but with one client.
Yes. Yes. That's been a whole new unique experience in itself, getting to see kind of the HR and recruitment side from the company angle versus from the staffing partner angle. So it's been fun.
I bet. Well, we've got a lot that we want to cover today, and just giving you guys a heads up if as you're watching this, if you have any comments, just leave them in the chat if you have questions or anything like that, and I will try to check that periodically. And one of my biggest complaints I hear is they're like, I just am not getting called in for interviews. So one of the things I want to ask you about is I want to know, what do you feel like are some of the biggest mistakes that you see job seekers making when they submit their resume or when they submit their application?
That's a great question. And I feel like it's really an easy answer. But then again, it's also complicated because we're humans. And so humans make errors. But some of the biggest mistakes that I see are one, not actually uploading the resume. Sometimes people will complete an application and they don't actually include the attachment. Perhaps they think they do, but they may not. And or not paying attention to the format that is requested. So some of these online technologies, they do have a very specific format that you have to upload that resume in because that electronic system is going to parse your resume and fill in different fields. Sometimes that becomes difficult. If it's in a PDF document, it can't recognize the text, especially cannot do it if it's a very common. I see people will copy image of their resume and paste that into a PDF document. And those, it's like an OCR scanner looking for text recognition. It cannot find the text to parse. So it's not compatible. Another thing that I see is when you're creating, and I know you speak a lot about this, you're really good about this, but not making that resume really showcase what their unique accomplishments have been. It's like a bullet point list of task, but not really highlighting what they have individually done to contribute in their role. Other things, again, in the world of technology, I still see lots of resumes where grammatically it's bad. There's still misspelled words. I see sometimes 5 different fonts. You can tell that they've added on to the resume at different times through their career. And it just doesn't look right. I see people not list their contact information. That one blows my mind. Just blows my mind. And then, when they do include email addresses, still, I encourage people, be aware of what your email address is. I unfortunately sometimes see email addresses that if I was applying for a job, it's probably not the most professional appearance through the email. And, as recruiters, we do pay attention to those things because often we're going to have to copy that, email address. We may need to contact you, reach out. And so when we see those email addresses, be really careful, but especially be careful if anything in your email appears to be discriminatory or offer suggestions that might be something about your personality. You don't want to give that impression to a recruiter. And then a huge one that I can't stress enough is I will see sometimes resumes come through and they'll include, like, this is a resume being uploaded. You have no idea who the recipient is. I see people sometimes list their private information, such as like their social security number, their date of birth, the year of graduation. These are things, one, that are confidential. That's your protected information, and you should not share that when you do not know who the recipient is. But secondly, putting a year of graduation, putting your date of birth, that dates you, and it offers, an unfortunate opportunity for someone to, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to have an age bias. You do not want that. So I would strongly encourage, do not include that type of information. Similarly, I see people that will list a photo. There are some jobs, I think, that require a photo, but for the most part, I wouldn't include a photo because
Right.
that, again, it creates a space for people to look at your image and potentially discriminate against you. And you do not want that. Of course, we don't want that. That's illegal.
Right.
But when it's there, it could create that opportunity.
One of the things that I have seen too on that, now that I'm really more involved on the resume side, is there are a lot of templates out there that facilitate that. So if you go on Canva and you want to create a pretty resume on Canva, most of them are going to have a place. And if you don't know about resumes in the United States, that's a big no-no to put a picture unless it's a certain type of position. But I would say 95, 98%, you don't need to put a picture. But in other countries, that is a thing and it's expected. So
Mm,
be careful about using those templates. Also, I don't know, it's kind of like you were saying about the OCR scannable. Um, Sometimes a template doesn't scan very well. So you need to be really careful
that's
that your
right.
template comes from a reputable source if you're going to use a resume template.
Yes. Yeah. One other call out there is some of those templates specifically, they have like a table. They may have the bar on the left
Mm,
side with a bunch of highlighted information, and then
yeah.
there's a table on the other side with it. And those just don't transfer very well in those systems very often.
No, no, no. I know that you had mentioned something before we came on about pay in researching that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yes. So when you're doing that job application, a lot of times there will be a request for what are your salary requirements? And I know that's
Mhm.
like everybody's favorite question, right? When they don't know, they haven't interviewed, they don't know what's really expected of the role. But it's a pretty critical question because it helps inform the talent management or recruiting team as to what are your minimums. And I would encourage if you're up for negotiation, everyone has a minimum typically. So even
Mhm.
if there's room for negotiation, document what your minimum is and then leave room for negotiation in the interview.
Okay.
That's a place because if you're and also research that information. If you're applying for a job, be aware and research what the national rates are. Be
Mhm.
aware if the company you're applying for, they may not have the capability to match a national rate. They may do 100% of their business in a specific state, meaning also their bill rates are specific to that state. So they may not be
Right.
able to compete on a national level, but they may have like a total compensation package where I know at Adafio we pay the premium for a lot of insurance benefits. So that's
Mhm.
something that we don't include in their salary. We are working on a total comp letter, but we don't include that in a salary. So when you're looking at that information, always research and make sure you're comparing apples to apples,
Right.
especially when it comes to pay.
Sure, sure. And know, like you said, know what your minimum is. Those are some things too that I feel like that if you need to do your own personal homework for yourself because there's going to be sometimes where it may look like the salary is great, but when you find out that maybe you have to pay in so much towards your benefits, maybe that's not as lucrative as another offer is for you. So be really careful with that for
That's
sure.
right. Location is another item. I always tell people you know, so often today we have the opportunity to look at, is it an on-site position? Does it require remote? Is it going to be a hybrid position? And
Mhm.
pay attention to those things because often when the recruiter's posting their role, they're going to post the minimum requirements and if it says that it's hybrid, that means it's going to require that you report to a physical location at times.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
being aware of where that location is and can you make that happen? It doesn't mean if it's state to state, most companies are probably not going to buy you a plane ticket every month. They might, if it depends on the role, but probably
Yeah.
not.
That's such an interesting change that we've seen since 2020, right?
Yeah.
Just people working in other states, living in one place and working somewhere else. So it's really, really interesting. One of the things I want us to dive in and talk a little bit more about is the world of IA or AI when it comes to resume screening. You hear a lot of talk about the applicant tracking system, and I want you to clarify exactly what it is and how it impacts job seekers, both negatively but also positively.
Absolutely. Yes, AI. I feel like AI and cybersecurity are the two things that I hear all literally daily. So it's but I think what a lot of people don't recognize is AI has been around for a long time,
Right.
artificial intelligence. So when we think about that specific to resumes, again, before 2020, I can think back to 2012.
Hmm.
When I first was, really, out there at 2007, 2008, going back that far, it's like uh, these systems, these ATS system or applicant tracking systems. You think about Monster, Indeed, or some of these big job boards where you can put in
Hmm.
your application, or Workforce Now or ADP. These are common application tools that you may see. And when you're uploading your resume, you're really creating a profile for yourself in this database. And what happens with the AI intelligence is it's going to screen your resume on behalf of that recruiter. If you think back to where we've been in our job search as an economy and as a nation, we've had kind of some ups and downs, and at
Hmm.
times some positions may have 500 people apply for one job in a course of a few days. And where the AI is an advantage is it's going to help the recruiter and recruiting team funnel down any of those applications that are not qualified,
Yeah.
because it's just they need to be able to focus their time on interviewing qualified applicants. And so the
Hmm.
intention of the AI is to really funnel out applicants who are 100% not reading the job requirements and just applying for everything. Or there may be a robot that's doing these applications.
Hmm.
So that's the intention of what the AI is doing. The negative side of it is it is a robot. It's an automated funneling. It's an automated filter that will happen on your application. And there are tips and tools on how you can get around that. So I'll give an example. So if I'm applying for a job in customer service, or some position that's a very common type role. I say common that there's high volume of those positions listed. In customer service, it's very, very common that people are going to upload a resume and they may not have a lot of experience.
Hmm.
But it's also might be common that someone that is still in high school may apply for that job. And they may have missed that application or that job requires a high school diploma.
Right.
And if that's the case, that AI screening is going to automatically filter out candidates who do not meet that high school diploma
Hmm.
requirement or GED requirement, because it's going to scan that resume and see do they list the words diploma, um,
Hmm.
and also it could be that they answered a question and it automatically screens out that candidate.
Right.
Another huge area where proofing your resume comes in handy is looking for word or phrases. As a
Mhm.
recruiter, I know in my old world, I know in your old world, when we get a job request from a client, now my clients are internal leaders. When I get a job request, my first attempt is to look through my database of resumes and
Mhm.
see if I already have a candidate who has those skill
Right.
sets. Well, how do I do a search if I'm looking for, in my world right now, if I'm looking for a network engineer? Obviously, the first phrase I'm going to look for is, do I have a network engineer? So,
Right.
using Boolean query searches where you can do, we always said that algebra is never going to play a factor in our adult lives. here we
Yeah.
are with Boolean search queries, and it uses the functionality of an algebra equation.
Mhm.
So if I'm saying I'm looking for a network engineer in quotes plus cybersecurity plus someone who has Microsoft fundamentals certification, those are three key phrases that I can put together, and AI is going to help me funnel through, 15,000 applications, because
Mhm.
that's a real number. It can funnel through those 15,000 applications in a matter of minutes,
Wow.
seconds, really. I can see a short list of here are the 100 candidates who have every single qualification that you've asked for, or a phrase that you've asked for on your resume. And then as a recruiter,
Mhm.
what we're going to do is then go through that shorter list that had all those phrases to determine, do they list it as I do not have, this qualification, or are
Mhm.
they talking about they hold those items or task qualifications so we can move them through the process and screen and interview. Um, another thing there is to be aware of what industry standards are. So, very common what I see. If you speak with cybersecurity professionals, they are adamant that cybersecurity is one word. And very often I see on resumes, it's spelled as two words. Well, if I'm doing a word search for a resume, a space holds a value, and it's not non-existent. So if I'm doing a search for cyberspace security, that does not equal cybersecurity as one word. That space will actually cause that to not show up in my search. Now I can do, if I'm a smart recruiter and I want to find that candidate and I know that that's a common misspelling or mistake, I may add, going back to my Boolean query, I may say, show me anyone who has cybersecurity as one word or cybersecurity as two words. And I can get through that. But if you don't have a recruiter who's able to do that, or you have the AI algorithm that is screening on behalf of the company, you may not ever get the opportunity to do that. So it's really important that you're mindful of misspelled words and mindful of what the job requirements are, and making sure that those key phrases, something, I'm old school, so I like to take a printed copy of a job requirement, a job description, and I'll go through and I'll highlight what are, key phrases within that job description that stand out, that are unique. Customer service, very common. Almost every single job description says that you've got to have customer service skills. But unique may be that they say that you specifically have to have outbound phone skills or something like that. If that's the case, then I want to make sure that my resume and my application includes some of those key phrase statements, so that when my recruiters are, going through and typing in key phrases, they're going to pick up that resume and now they're going to contact that candidate.
Exactly. I know when I work with my clients, after we make their resume and present it to them and we finalize everything, one of the very first things they get from me is a document that teaches them how to customize, to go look at that job description and look for those key phrases, those keywords. Like you think about sales, some people may call it business development. So if that's within the job description, you need to have that. In fact, it probably wouldn't be bad to have both. And I have
That's
a
right.
visitor today, so I've, I've been trying to mute him, but very unsuccessfully.
That's
He's
okay.
not happy to be joining us. We've got some other questions I wanted to get to.
Okay.
And then I will mute myself so we can hear your answer. One of the things that I want to know is, what are your thoughts on whether a job seeker should follow up and after they've submitted their application or their resume, and should they do that with a phone call or an email? What are your thoughts there?
Oh yeah. I love that. And I would say consider both. Consider doing both. In this world of technology, working for a technology company, I would say if I receive emails from unknown senders, number one, we have security features in place that email is automatically flagged on my behalf, and it says this is an external sender that you have not received emails from. So I'm already going to approach it pretty cautiously. And, if it's got links, if you have attachments in that email, there's a strong chance I'm not going to click on them. So a phone call helps us kind of get around that. In the day and age of, we hear so much about cybersecurity, breaches, breach of information and breach of security, not to scare people, but those are very real threats. And social engineering is definitely a space where adversaries, the bad actors, may use that as an advantage to get into someone's email. So, for me personally, I'm a very common target for those types of messages. And so I often don't click on them. If I don't know the sender, I'm not going to click on it. I'm going to rely on our application system to look at those resumes and look at the documents that I need to, because that system has security settings to protect us. Similarly, I can't encourage a phone call enough, a written note. So maybe sometimes not an email. I probably would recommend not using an email in most cases if you've done an electronic application, only because you want to verify by phone. Is the electronic submission even working? Because if they didn't get your electronic submission, then an email may not be the best way. However, if you're applying for a position and written communication skills are like one of the top skills that you need, an email or a handwritten note or card, in this world of technology, a handwritten note, you'll be probably one of the only handwritten notes that apply or arrive in that person's mailbox. So if you got someone who is reporting to an office, I can't stress, sending a handwritten note enough. And then followed by, if the job requires written skills, absolutely send an email, because that showcases kind of an unadvertised opportunity of what your written skills are. And then same thing with the phone call. If you're applying for a position that requires you to have a great phone etiquette, articulation, and the ability to pivot quickly and communicate to someone advantages of pros, cons about the company, or what maybe a sales job, phone calls are awesome. So I highly, but all of that said, do the follow-up. Definitely do the follow-ups. Those matter. And consider LinkedIn. That's the other one. LinkedIn messages are great.
So I was kind of curious too, because of how busy I know that you are, and you get that phone call to stop and interrupt your day. And that's one of the reasons I had wanted to ask that question, is like, how do you really feel about that? But I think you make such a valid point, and especially in your line of work where you're keenly aware of cybersecurity and things like that, where it's like, oh my goodness, that, I'm not going to click on these links. And I think these are things that a lot of people just don't think of. We are just so used to having this thing and everything be just a push a button and we're done. And we don't think, hey, it actually can talk to a person. So
yeah, it's amazing.
And I remember too the days of, multiple applications coming in and multiple resumes coming in, and it's just, you're kind of overwhelmed by that. But the people that stand out, unfortunately, tend to be the negative things. And
Yes.
so if you are stellar, you're going to be that much more stellar by sending a note or making a phone call, or, heck, do all three.
Yes,
It's just like,
absolutely.
if you're seriously interested, because I do think, and this kind of leads into my next question, I would love to know your thoughts on job boards. But one of the things that I know is that spraying and praying is really a very difficult strategy. And if
Very.
you apply for a job on LinkedIn, I love how it'll tell you how many people have already applied. And so, what are your thoughts there? Are they even good? Should Should we avoid job? What do you think on
What
job
to
boards?
do? I have a love-hate relationship with job boards. I love them for the sense that very often you can reach candidates who may not even know that your company exists. So
Mhm,
I always encourage searching within, these job boards. If nothing else, your drive around local town, you may be missing some companies that you're completely unaware that have
mm,
openings in your area. Um, aside from that, or alongside that, you also want to be mindful and careful that some of these job boards, now a LinkedIn posting, some of those are paid ads, and
mhm,
so that employer they're 1,000,000% interested in seeking candidates through those job boards when they're paying for those ads. So anytime you
mhm,
see a sponsored ad, two things. One, that means it's probably a pretty critical position for them to get filled because they're
mhm,
paying top dollar for those job board slots.
mhm,
And then secondly, it's probably the method that they're looking to receive their applications. If they're taking the time to put it out there, then that's the method that they're looking to receive their applications.
mhm,
However, there are some job boards out there that scrub company websites for postings that they can then they grab them and they put them into their page, and it might
right.
be, typically those are never going to be page one of your search results, because those are going to be your sponsored ads. But some of those positions that are, toward the bottom of page one, or even page, like page two, three, and so on, those may not be legitimate openings. They may have been 6 months ago, but it
Mhm.
could be a tactic that job board is using to increase traffic in their SEO on their website. And so
Oh.
the other side of that is also sometimes those job boards, um, you know, they'll post a recommended or estimated salary range. And if you
Mm,
go into that posting and not really doing research, it could, I've seen some of those be off $20,000 and $30,000 for roles that are posted. And I'm looking
mhm.
at the estimated salary range. I'm like, wow, people are going to be really disappointed when they apply for this job because it's not paying that. It's like,
Yeah,
and I
right.
can't, there's nothing I can do to change that.
Uh-huh. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on employers including or not including a salary on a job posting?
So that's a tough one.
Uh-huh.
We at Adafio, we're kind of going through this right now where we do not post salary ranges. And
Mhm,
I think so many employers are in this space right now after COVID,
mhm,
because we're in a unique position that many roles can be hybrid or are
mhm,
hybrid. But some positions may require on-site presence. Some may be, the person may sit in another state. So posting salary ranges these days, I'm finding can be a conflicting approach in posting jobs. I say that because sometimes employers are now having to consider, do we need to be competitive with statewide or region or national or international? What what do we need to post? And not wanting to deter candidates because they put in the wrong range.
mhm,
So there's a lot of companies, we don't post salary ranges for that reason. We have a concept of, we can potentially flex up or down. It depends on the
mhm,
role and what the requirements are.
mhm,
But also, I think just maturation of job bans. There are some companies that, big corporate companies are typically going to have job bans associated with the job roles. So they may not post the salary, but they say it's pay band 1 or pay band 5. Well, internally, that means that is connected to a certain range. And a lot of companies, I know some that will have a posting, you can't apply for, if you're in a pay band 5, you can't apply for a pay band 8 because you have to get to a 6 and 7 first.
ah,
Um, so
okay,
there's little, stipulations like that with all kinds of employers, and then others, they're flexible, and because they're
mhm,
so flexible, often they may not they may not post a range.
Right.
As a job seeker, I know whenever I was looking for a new position, I intentionally excluded positions that did not list a salary.
Uh-huh.
Because as a job seeker, I didn't want to waste my time talking to, that doesn't sound right, but I didn't want to spend time because there were so many opportunities
Right.
at the time. The job market's changed a little bit. So
Mhm.
that's probably unique to each searter in how
Mhm.
they want to approach it. But that's my 2 cents on it.
That's so interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Um, we have covered a lot of great stuff. One of the things I would love to give you the opportunity to use this platform while you're here to tell my audience about positions that you are looking to fill and how to get in touch with you.
Yes. So we are actually in the midst of recruiting for several roles. So our website, our positions, I'm looking for a business development executive, which is like that new business sales, a client
Mhm.
relationship manager, which is going to be someone who is kind of an internal person who handles the relationship with our internal team and the client, kind of an account
Mhm.
manager type. We're looking for a financial analyst. This is a pretty exciting position. If you love spreadsheets, this is your position. Project management, ideally someone with an agile or PMP background, and then not yet posted, but hopefully will be today, is the Operations Center Manager position. And this is going to be overseeing about I think it's around 15 people for tier 3 and field engineers. So very exciting position.
Very good. Very good. Well, okay. So if anyone is interested in any of these positions, how can they find you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with
Absolutely.
you?
So if you're applying for positions with Adafio, the fastest approach is to actually, as I mentioned earlier, is to definitely complete it through our website. So emailing me a resume, most of the time our filters are going to scrub it out. Adafio.com/careers
Mhm.
is our website. It's immediately updated as positions are posted within our database. And if you'd like to contact, if you have questions or comments, things about today, A Langston at adafio.com is my email. And then the leadership coaching, if there's anything there with 5 behaviors,
Mhm.
my email there is Amy Leeds Langston at
Very good.
gmail.com.
All right. I have just put all that in the chat. So y'all make sure to go follow Amy on LinkedIn if you're not already. And for both of us, make sure that you click the little bell in the right corner because then you'll find out Amy posts pretty regular and you'll find out more about positions as they come available or just the exciting things going on at Adafio. They've got a great company over there with a great culture, do a lot of really good things in the community as well. So you might want to consider going and following them as well on LinkedIn. So Amy, thank you so much. This has just been so informative, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. Guys, I want to ask you that if you would leave us a comment and let us know what your biggest takeaway is, or if you think that there's someone that could benefit from what we've talked about today, feel free to tag them in this or share this video with them. It's going to be on Facebook and on LinkedIn and YouTube. So share that with them. And just a reminder that I want to make sure that if you haven't already, grab your LinkedIn Success Blueprint checklist. And that is my free gift to you that you can use to get started updating your profile and really strengthening your online presence on LinkedIn. There's a lot of good information there. And I, real quick, will just drop the link to that in the comments as well. So, next week, I think I'm going to be solo. I was scheduled to have a guest, and I think we're probably going to end up postponing that. But just mark your calendars. It'll be Wednesday at 12:30, and join us or join me for sure. I will have a great topic on more information regarding job searching and things like that that can help you. So I appreciate you joining us, and I will see you on our next video.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining or for inviting me today. I've enjoyed it so